Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Spectrum wants to hear your views. You can SMS at any time during the show. Type Spectrum, leave a space, type in your contribution and name, then send it to 7197. Your views, our interviews on Spectrum, Radio 1 FM 90.
Hello, a very warm welcome. This is Spectrum on Radio 1. I'm your host, Edmund Kizito. On Spectrum tonight, is Uganda on the right track in human rights, considering a report by the Uganda Human Rights Commission? The Uganda Human Rights Commission has today released a report documenting the state of human rights in Uganda in the year 2012, indicating that complaints have reduced, although the form of abuses and the leading perpetrators have remained the same. The report indicates that the Commission received a total of 2,725 complaints and registered 706 new complaints on human rights violations, a 31% decrease from the 1,021 complaints registered in 2011. Violation of freedom from torture, cruel, inhuman and degrading treatment or punishment constituted 35% of the total complaints registered, followed by detention beyond 48 hours at 27%, denial of child maintenance at 17%, and deprivation of property at 6.4%. Most of the complaints registered were against the Uganda police force, with a total of 346 complaints, followed by private individuals with a total of 190, most of which concern the denial of child maintenance. The report also documents conditions of detention centers, on top of highlighting emerging issues that may cause serious human rights implications if no efforts are taken to address them. These include welfare of teachers, health workers, pensioners, corruption, and transparency in the oil and gas sector. Now, while handing over this report to the Speaker of Parliament earlier today, the Commission also advised Parliament not to enact laws that will infringe on human rights, and the Commission gave advice on the Public Order Management Bill and the Marriage and Divorce Bill. This report has 12 chapters, but today we will discuss the chapters on complaint management, conditions in places of detention, and the emerging human rights concerns that need to be handled urgently. Other chapters will be handled during the course of this month. Our guests tonight, Honorable Medi Kaggwa, Chairman of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. You're most welcome, Mr. Honorable Kaggwa.
Thank you very much.
We're also joined by Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana, Executive Director of the Foundation for Human Rights Initiative. That's a private NGO. You're most welcome, Mr. Sewanyana.
Good evening, listeners.
We're also joined by Mrs. Roslyn Karugonjo SEGAWA, Director of Monitoring and Inspection at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. You're most welcome, Mrs. SEGAWA.
Thank you very much. Good evening, listeners.
Roslyn, can you give us maybe Honorable Kaggwa, can you give us an overview of your report which you issued today? Honorable Kaggwa.
Thank you very much, and good evening, listeners. I think, like you've correctly put it, we've observed a decline in the complaints received in the year 2012 compared to 2011. And we have also realized that there were less complaints to the police in 2012 as compared to 2011. It's however true that the main violations take place the torture, inhuman and degrading treatment or punishment, the issue of detention beyond 48 hours, and the maintenance, child maintenance. We noted, of course, some good developments, efforts being made by government in particular places of detention. Of course, the use of bucket has continued, particularly in prisons that were originally local government prisons. But we saw efforts by government trying to renovate and even build new ones. We noted a decrease on the number of people on remand, although that's on average, although in individual prisons we note that overcrowding remains a problem. We, however, noted also improvement in awareness among the security forces and indeed the public. Good developments included the senior police stations being built and old ones renovated. But we also noted that there are emerging issues that warrants and this prompted us to have a whole chapter so that they can be brought to the attention of government. And this follows a decision we took maybe 2-3 years ago to form an early warning sort of mechanism. And this is intended to see those areas that are likely to cause problems, violations of human rights, and we draw attention of government to them. And some of these include the teachers. Everybody saw last year what happened, and even in this year there were threats, and there remain threats. The health workers, landslides, the issue of the Euro bill, So we thought we should bring government's attention to these areas we see as likely to bring problems.
All right, we'll try and get into detail on that a little bit later. Roslyn, can you talk to us about whether this report actually represents the reality of the situation?
Of course,
you are a government agency. Maybe you're painting a clear picture. So,
UHRC is a constitutional body, and the report is based on its monitoring and on what UHRC observed. So, from our perspective, it reflects an accurate position. The issues we raise. The complaints received, we cannot lie about that. That's what we received. And most of the violations were on torture and ill treatment, detention beyond 48 hours, child maintenance, property, life. And the conditions we found in places of detention were what we saw. The detention of children with adults, challenges of persistent torture and ill treatment, violations of the rights of prisoners by making them work for as little as Uganda shillings 100 to 500 Uganda shillings. Those are realities, and in fact, as we presented the report to the chair of the Human Rights Committee of Parliament, when they went on the ground, because we've presented 4 reports to them, they found similar findings. Obviously, there are other people involved in monitoring the human rights situation. The UN is involved, civil society organizations are involved. I think some of the findings have been similar, but we cannot claim monopoly of all information regarding the situation. There could be things that we may not know about, but by and large, this is what we observe.
All right, very briefly, how does the Uganda Human Rights Commission work? Very, very briefly.
It works through receipt of complaints, handling them through investigations and tribunals, and then we carry out human rights education, which means we interact with the public, we interact with security agencies, we interact with various stakeholders. We don't write this report on our own. We do have consultative meetings with most stakeholders who are involved in the human rights field. So that's how we do.
It's an interactive process.
Yes, it's an interactive process.
All right. I mean, I was looking through the popular version of the report, 63-page document, and I noticed that you say the army opened up. You were able to access all their detention centers except 3. What do you think? Well, what does that tell us about the environment? Maybe they become more open, the government. And why do you think they closed those 3? What do they do in those 3 that they're hiding from you, for instance?
By and large, the army has opened up. There was a time we were required to give 48-hour notice, then we moved on to 24-hour notice, then it came down to you can just impromptu visit. There were 3 places where where access has been a challenge is where we've been told that maybe you find them practicing their new equipment, or they could be engaged in something that is not for
a security matter.
It's for security matters that they keep. They say that they keep the commission out there, and sometimes they've told us that in most countries, civilians don't just,
you can't just go to a
military detention centers. Right. Nevertheless, you should know that we visited these facilities without means,
and only for those 3 they couldn't let you in, and you don't know why. Mr. Sewanyana, what do you see when you read this report? You've watched this human rights situation for many years. What does it tell you? Where is the cup pointing?
Yeah, thank you, Edmund. First, I need to commend the Uganda Human Rights Commission for having executed its mandate. It's important that bodies that have been established to carry out certain mandate do carry out their mandate and in a timely manner. I think that's one starting point, because I have always had issues with the delivery of the report, but this time I think they have done much better than they have done in the past. The report has been delivered in a timely manner. I have also had the chance to look at the report. The report in many ways is comprehensive. It covers a lot of areas: civil, political rights, economic, social and cultural rights. The report, to a large extent, notes the structural progress that has been made in many areas, but perhaps aspects that we may need to address in order to deepen the engagement on issues of human rights are issues like the systemic weaknesses that still exist. Much as there could be at the structural level progress being made, for example, human rights desks being established, but the question at the end of the day is, if I have been wronged, do they actually deliver? Do I get justice? What is the mechanism? How many people, for example, at the end of the day came to the desk, the human rights desk in one of the police centers or prison station and actually got justice? What actions took place? How many offended, for example, the ordinary citizen and were punished by that particular agency? So at the structural level, yes, the commission has noted there's progress, but I think with time we shall need to deepen the engagement so that it's at the end of the day, what is this human rights discourse all about? It's about the citizen, the ordinary person. The ordinary person must feel that this particular agency exists for my good. For example, we need to understand, why should a policeman who is paid by a taxpayer at the end of the day brutalize a citizen? So these are issues that are systemic weaknesses in themselves. They're generic, and now we need to address that. Perhaps one of the things I'll be asking the Commission also to think through is, how can we deepen democracy in this country? It's very easy to say, well, the police no longer tortures that much, or the prisons department does not torture inmates. But the bottom line at the end of the day, what happens, for example, when courts deliver decisions? Are they executed? Because that's where justice is found. Because, for example, if Mwanga Chivumbi goes to court and the Constitutional Court delivers a judgment and it's not executed by the appropriate authority, then you find that at the end of the day there will be people who will suffer because there was no execution of that. So I think we need to note that, yes, government is making some efforts, but I think what Ugandans want now at this moment is to feel that they own the country, they belong, that whatever policies exist are in their favor, and whatever laws are, I think the Commission makes note of that, are made are actually for the good of the people. So there is that confidence, that confidence that needs to be nurtured between the ordinary citizen and the leadership. And that, I think, will remain a big challenge. And we as human rights defenders from all walks of life, we will need now to address that.
Well, listen, this is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. Is Uganda on the right track in human rights, considering a report by the Uganda Human Rights Commission? Our guest tonight, Honorable Medi Kaggwa, Chairman of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana, you just heard him speak. He's the Executive Director of the Foundation for Human Rights Initiative, a veteran in that area. Mrs. Roslyn Karugonjo, SEGAWA, Director of Monitoring and Inspection at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. You will be able to contribute to this discussion by calling in. Honorable Medi Kaggwa, let's look at Chapter 1 in your 12-page report, Complaints Management. What exactly do you mean by complaints management? Can you give us a minute on that?
I think what is involved here is the receipt, registration, investigation, analysis of the complaint. Is it within our mandate or is it in another mandate? And finally taking a decision as to whether it merits going to the tribunal. Unlike other national human rights institutions, in Uganda our commission has a tribunal, a quasi-judicial court. Now, when we get these complaints, first of all, because we are a human rights body and maybe because people have confidence in us, they come with all sorts of things. When we hear out the complaint, we may find the complaint is criminal. It's not within our mandate. So we would have to advise this person, no, this is not within our mandate, go to police. And I must say here that we don't only do that, but we follow it up to see if the police has helped. And a complainant may come and say, yes, you think your right was violated, but does not qualify. Yes. In fact, as you note also in the detailed report, we spend a lot of time at times listening out to mandates that are not ours. But we can't throw away people. I think we gave advice to about 2,000 people. You can imagine the man hours spent on that.
Some of them are not supposed to be coming to your doors?
No. But because we have Human Rights Commission,
yes,
they will come and say,
you give them a hearing.
Yes, definitely. In fact, I must also take advantage here. So this is the problem we've had with our development partners on the issue of child maintenance. They say, why should we waste time on child maintenance when there's a family court? We say, but yes, the family court is there, but people find our system much faster. And we see the children as vulnerable people. We can't throw them away, But we also have problems with this. Somebody comes, reports, and then they go away, and you never hear of them again.
There's no follow-up.
They don't come to follow up. Next time you want to trace him, he has moved, and it gives us headache. Now we are trying to improve on this to get next of kin, that in case the person who complained, we can't reach that person, we can ask the person named as the next of kin to try and find them, because this gives us a problem in investigation, or even at times if a matter qualifies for the tribunal. This is what is generally involved in complaints. It can be done through telephone, writing, at times, as the mandate says, on our own initiative. That's why for us newspapers are, what is the term they use? Raw material.
Yes.
For us newspapers are raw material, because at times we see the
source of information.
Yes, there are common issues we see in the paper. Say, no, this is a human rights issue. We take it up from the paper, from the newspapers. So that's what we do.
Roslyn, talk to us about this chapter 2, assessment of conditions in place of detention. Can you give us an overview on that?
I think an overview was given, but key to note in terms of places of detention are some of the challenges that are still prevailing. We obviously noted improvements, but there are cases that are still disturbing. Some of the issues that are disturbing is that the prison population has risen.
The prison population has risen?
Yes, from 32,307 to 34,940. And mark you, from way back, it's been overcrowded. So the prison population, the increase in prison population means more problems. It means more overcrowding. It means There'll be challenges with ventilation, there'll be challenges with food, there'll be challenges with sanitation, everything. You have to pay more extra attention. We also found disturbing are cases of long and arbitrary detention. There are times people are kept in police cells longer than 48 hours. If it were a week, that might be fine, but sometimes you find people have spent months.
Months on detention without trial.
On detention without trial. It doesn't matter. They could be even in prison, but their trials
they drag on for long.
Have dragged on. There is no transport sometimes to take them to court. So you find that people have spent a long time in detention. And once when we were inspecting, one prisoner said, "What do you think of us? Did you put us here to make us rot in here? If we've committed any crimes, let us be tried and let us serve our sentences. But for us to spend years here without being tried is really disturbing." There are cases of torture and solitary confinement, cases of detention of children with adults, cases of children detained with their incarcerated mothers. There are issues of health and HIV/AIDS services in places of detention. Inmates with disabilities are face challenges in detention because the prisons, the police cells, like most anyway, public buildings are not very conducive or accessible to persons with disabilities. Also of concern is inmates detained over civil debts.
Inmates detained over civil debts?
Yes, under international law, somebody should not be detained over contractual obligations.
All right, let's take a break. We'll talk about that. That's a contentious issue. We'll talk about that. This is Spectrum Radio, and we'll be back to stay tuned.
MTN, everywhere you go.
Excuse me, what is this 300 shillings on my bill for?
That is for the tinted candles, madam.
And this 100 shillings?
That is for the air conditioning.
And this 200 shillings?
For the blue walls, ma'am.
I can't believe this!
Why pay for what you don't use or ask for? That's why we at Standard Chartered are introducing the EasyGo account, the first current account of its kind that gives you complete control of your banking charges. For more details, visit a Standard Chartered branch or call 0414-340077.
Would you like to leave me a tip, please?
There are those who sit around waiting for things to happen. But then there are those who make things happen. Take a closer look. While some people follow trends, there are those who set them. While many people dream of what could be, there are those who make their dreams a reality. While some people make a name for themselves, there are those who also leave a legacy. These people have a unique drive that enables them to make things happen. And they all choose a beer that has a unique ingredient, crystal malt, releasing the richer, full flavor that makes Nile Gold Uganda's true premium lager. Nile Gold, beyond the ordinary.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back.
Without dust.
Welcome back on Spectrum tonight. Is Uganda on the right track in human rights, considering a report by the Uganda Human Rights Commission? Our guest tonight, Honorable Med Kaggwa, Chairman of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Honorable Kaggwa was in the Constitution Commission that gave us the 1995 Constitution. It's moved around the country, chaired by Justice Ben Odoki. We're also joined by Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana, Executive Director of the Foundation for Human Rights Initiative, a veteran in that area, and Mrs. Roslyn Karugonjo, SEGAWA, Director of Monitoring and Inspection of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. You will be able to contribute to this discussion at some stage. Mr. Sewanyana, let's talk about Chapter 5 of this report. What they call emerging human rights concerns. Can you outline that for us a little bit?
looking at the report, I must say that the Commission is spot on in terms of current challenges that the country is facing. There are quite a number. Of course, they talk about the plight of teachers, the plight of health workers, media freedom, freedom of assembly, the operating environment for NGOs, and other issues such as the oil and gas. But all in all, when you look at these emerging issues, they all have a lot to do with deepening democracy in the country. You know, how do you treat citizens? Take, for example, a teacher. All of us are products of, teachers. You pay a teacher 200,000 shillings. You don't even pay that money on time. And that teacher, like me and everybody else, Edmund, has children, has a family. They complain through their teachers' union, as we saw over the last 2 years. You call them and you make promises, you don't honor them. Instead, you harass their leaders. Are you actually respectful of your citizenry? Let's talk about the health worker, the conditions in which they offer health services. Like teachers, I would call them the wretched of the earth. Yet we expect quality health care. And for us who can afford, we can fly out. Okay? But what about that ordinary person who no longer has coffee or cotton to sell, but has children, and is expected to give you quality service? When you go around the country, the complaints are the same. The health workers need to be rescued. That's what they are saying. If you respect the people who gave you the vote, then you must look into their plight, ensure that they are well paid and are paid on time. Because by the end of the day, it's a paltry sum compared to the amount that is spent on other budget areas. So that's the issue. Let's talk about the media. We all know the role of the media to inform, to educate, and entertain. That's a healthy nation needs these people. But the environment in which they operate, someone goes to cover an estate, and the policeman out of nowhere beats him. Is that respect of your people?
I saw a picture of prisons officers in the West. You could think they were actually anxious to kill a lion. You could think they were really anxious to kill a lion that was going to finish the whole village. Exactly. They were attacking a journalist.
These are really, people who deserve protection. On the other hand, what one needs to do is ensure that the environment in which they operate is conducive, because a state to run properly needs this information. It needs to be informed both by detractors and its followers, so that it makes informed decisions. Let's talk about the NGO environment. Last year was quite a tough one for many NGOs. The perception out there is that when you say something which people feel that they don't like, or to one extent or the other undermines their interests, you are seen as opposition. But worldwide, we have people in government, we also have people in opposition. People in opposition, they also have a role to play. There is an assumption that when you're in opposition, you have no role to play. That's what the Commission is saying, in very simple terms, that being oppositional is not a crime. It should be a normal exercise. We have just seen this in Kenya. Yes, they went to court and now the matter has been resolved. That's what it is all about. When you enact a natural resource like oil and gas, it's all of us here. The state needs to make people feel that at the end of the day, there is something for all of us.
For everyone.
Yes, the information should be accessible. People should not be arbitrarily displaced. I have read the report. That's why I'm saying it's spot on. Right. If I were to add a few more things to their findings, I would also underscore the problem of unemployment. Because, you know, you cannot have peace and stability. You cannot control crime properly if the unemployment rate is going up and the conditions in which people work are not conducive. That is an area which will need to be looked at. We also need to look at the industrialization drive.
Yes.
You know, in countries that have managed to, you know, improve the quality of life of their people, you'll find that there are small industries everywhere, cottage industries. The other day I heard we have a lot of money for the youth, and this money has become an issue of contention. Why not establish small industries all over the country and employ the youth? These are issues which I think we will need to deal with. Then the whole idea of policing. What is policing?
When you talk about small industry, there are many things that can be done. We still import all our matchboxes. We used to make them here at some stage. We even import toothpicks. So there's lots of things that you can actually do.
So we really need to address some of these issues. The issue of policing, they have talked at great length about how the law enforcement industry works. But I think the law enforcement industry needs to now understand what is policing, what is law enforcement. You know, you hear a lot of arbitrary actions, people arbitrarily arrested. Of course, by the way, I think the Commission has also underscored this question of lawlessness on the part of the population. Because it is also unfair for us sometimes to say it is the state, the state.
Even the people.
Yeah, we have also seen increasing levels within the population where people really are taking the law in their hands. And there's so many people who die as a result of that.
Is that because they don't trust the agencies?
Of course, but that is not a good reason for you to actually, you know, hack somebody, ban somebody out of nowhere. So I think these are areas we shall continue to hammer, but I think these emerging issues, as highlighted by the Commission, will need to be seriously addressed as we go on in terms of deepening our democracy.
All right, maybe perhaps before we get back to you, Honorable Medi Kaggwa, about the future and the outlook, what we can expect in the future. I know it's very difficult to forecast some of these things, but Roslyn, I cut you short about something that you're talking about. You spoke about civil debt. You don't want people jailed when they don't pay their debts. What happens in other countries? Give us a philosophy of that.
The philosophy is that where it's a contractual obligation, you don't incarcerate somebody.
What do? You flog them in public?
No, you don't flog them either. I think there are mechanisms. You can attach their property and be able to sell it off. Legally, of course, you approach courts of law and you're able to get redress. The thing is, apart from incarceration violating international human rights standards, it adds to the overcrowding in the prison. Secondly, you keep somebody there for 6 months. I don't know whether you'll actually get back your money because the situation is not rosy in prison. I don't see how it will get your money back, except if you're looking to punish the person.
Right.
Perhaps that's what people are trying to do when they put civil debtors in there. They're trying to punish them. So from that perspective, it's not.
You think it should be struck off our law books?
Yes, it should be.
International law. It's senseless.
I don't think it will. I don't think it achieves the purpose. If you intend for somebody to pay your civil debt, let's look at it this way. Somebody is operating a shop. You've loaned them money. They haven't paid back. You've kept them in 6 months. So how will you get your money?
All right.
People think that relatives will come in, but they may not.
Sometimes
the economic situation is hard.
All right.
So
you want that
may not
struck
come
off the law
in.
books.
Yeah.
Safe houses. Do we still have safe houses?
This 2012, we didn't receive any complaints on this.
So maybe safe houses are safely behind us.
Yeah, I think so. At least we didn't. We used to receive but this time, no. When I look in my strategy, we didn't receive any complaint.
That's something to applaud.
Alleging.
Clean government is finally here with us.
We keep our fingers crossed that it continues.
Let's talk about funding. Honorable Medi Kaggwa, we're glad you're here with us tonight. Talk to us about funding at the Human Rights. Do you get the money that you need to get?
maybe before that, Henry Livingstone here mentioned the issue of the public, and I wanted to build on it. The issue of obligations, duties and obligations of the public. In fact, he took it out of my. I wrote here that we saw in 2012 a lot of intolerance on the part of the public. You know, a border person. In fact, he said he knocks you because you're on the right in the right lane, but because of the way they ride, he knocks you without even thinking. They round you up, they beat you up as if you are a victim. They beat the border person. They beat the driver as if you are the one in the wrong. A man makes a U-turn.
All right.
You know, and the issue of mob justice. In fact, today somebody called, he said we should not stop calling it mob justice and call it mob injustice. Because you say justice as if you are glorifying it, you know. But going back to the issue of funding, first of all, we must give credit to government because many years ago, several years ago, the funding was 30-70. That is 70 donors and 30 government. Yes. But over the years now, I think as of now, we are 70-30. Oh. Yeah, government funds us 70%. And the donors 30, and it has showed the willingness to continue. Our prayer and push is that we should be 100% funded by government, because this is what the Paris principles say, that NHRIs should be fully funded by governments. So this is where we are currently. Of course, we like in all other departments, we've not got the sums we would want, because again, like today when we were launching the report to the public, one member in the audience said, look, you people, they call us Uganda Human Rights Commission. Oh, you're not in the village. We are not in the villages. Yes, we have 9 regional offices, but you can imagine a regional office in Fort Portal covering up to Hoima, Machine. You know, the span is so we need more money, please. We need more money. We want to establish offices to be closer to the people. The issue of civic education calls for money. The little progress we see has arisen out of sensitization of the public. We now have what we call barazas. We go to the markets and we talk. Because you cannot claim a right you don't know. But this involves money. You know, when you monitor in their department, you go to a place, government institution, somebody does not know what the Constitution says. Somebody does not know what the Penal Code says. That's why you find they run to Section 160, a common nuisance. You know, so we are thinking, yes, get us money. We make a compendium to have a Penal Code, Chapter 4 of the Constitution, and these other laws which the law enforcement officers use, so that one can refer to this material, to this book, and they know what to charge, rather than everyone obtaining money by false pretense. Every time obtaining money by false pretense. Right.
Talk to us, Honorable Kaggwa, about the public order management bill. Government wants to bring it. They detain you for 6 months without trial.
Yes, it's a long time when this issue came up, but our position remains the same. We gave, I think it was in the 2011 report when we gave our view.
You don't like it?
We've said that, look, we worked on guidelines on demonstrations. These were agreed upon by the police, civil society, and us. Let them be the basis for the law on public order and management. But we note that there was effort to they use the word water down those guidelines. And say no, we are still adamant on that should be the basis of the new bill. We haven't seen the one they have brought back to Parliament, but certainly we shall come up with our position after we've studied it and send it to Parliament, as we normally do.
Well, this is Spectrum on Radio 1. You can call in now. Our number 0414-348-111, 0312-260-390, 0312-261-390. Of course, at some stage, Honorable Kaggwa, you are consulted on that public order management bill, they strengthened it. It went through police and other agencies, and it was made a very draconian law. And the impression was that you had originated that and you hadn't done that.
No, not at all. In fact, we went public to disown it. We went public. We said this is not what we agreed upon, and that's why it was withdrawn. We are yet to see the new version because we shall also give our stand on it.
And they haven't given it to you?
No, I don't know whether our legal department has got it.
Wait for what's
maybe once bitten
or what's with the clerk.
Maybe once bitten twice. You bashed it the last time. Be careful. This time, recently we had cases of people being arrested, rounded up in their homes. They are found sleeping at midday. They ask them, why are you sleeping? They take them to places we don't know where. Mr. Sewanyana, is that something that bothers you? Are we keeping law and order? Yes, all right. Spectrum. Good evening. Your name?
My name is Peter.
Yes, Peter.
I have strong belief in the power of the radio, because now that the radio holds access media outrage, and it as far as people who come back on plan, they can at least manage dry cells and listen to programs. I want to urge the Uganda Human Rights Commission not to walk without them for the work they've done, and it is very hardship, but to use the radio, which is where they must find across the country like they are doing now. Use programs in local languages to educate the public about the issue of human rights and the respect for it. Where we have, we have mentioned on the borders belonging to their hands for the abandoned world, and also violations of children's rights, women's rights, particularly which are vulnerable groups. We need to have more of these programs in local languages diversified across the country on the issue of human rights. And I see some of these radio stations will be fine. Some others will having programs on human rights. So there's not program, content. Not content, and there will be no charge for this because one, the issue is integrated into the media violation of media rights. And these radio rights when media people who are fighting the other hardship, the local leaders, the countryside and the police. I believe this media houses will accord you to spend some time to educate the public on human rights. Thank you very much.
Peter, thank you. Spectrum, hello? Okay, let's address that point. Roslyn.
Yeah, it's a welcome suggestion about radio stations, because at least nearly everyone can afford at least some sales and listen to radio, and we've been carrying out radio programs, and would like to appreciate Radio 1 and many others that have even sometimes given us free airtime to talk about human rights issues, even television stations and things like that. We really appreciate it. But sometimes we are also caught up with the expenses. If you have to pay, is it maybe 2 million or 4 million to have airtime, it can be expensive, but we take advantage of the radios, and we'll continue to do so because that's the cheapest way we can communicate this human rights message. But I would like to also add that apart from radio stations, we're engaged in barazas. We take advantage of the market days when people are selling stuff in the market, or people have come to buy, and we set up mobile complaints handling clinics, and we take the opportunity to talk to people about human rights. I can't say we've reached all, but we are moving towards. I mean, we are moving there. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
Right, that's what the Chinese say. Mr. Sewanyana, some people have said that the cases are low this year because it's not an election year. Yes, last year there was an election, walk to work and so on. Is it a curve that's going down, or is it simply a cycle? 5 years from now we'll be back to where we were last year, for instance?
Of course, it goes without saying that if it's an election year, tempers rise and interests are at stake, and the temptation to abuse each other becomes higher. But I must say that violations of human rights continue. It may be a question of degree in one year or the other, but these violations occur because we still have those systemic weaknesses. It's a real problem.
You need to explain that the systemic weaknesses. You say the structures are okay, they have desks and so on. What do you mean by system? Is it the mindset? Is it
exactly? I think you have hit it. The mindset of people. For example, what is my role as a police officer when I go to, to ensure there is law and order? What am I supposed to do? And how do I treat people? How do these people perceive me? It's more to do with values. Do we Ugandans value each other at every level? Someone who goes out to sacrifice a child, does that person value life? A person who, in the course of policing, gets you Edmund and throws you on a double pickup behind, where they even carry dead bodies. What is that person's perception of the value?
Yes. Okay, let's hear.
It was very critical issue, the high rate of unemployment in the country, and the high rate of crime by different groups of youth. And I think employment is a human right for the right to employment. The human rights commission should press upon the state. Not they have to ensure this employment.
Right.
And also to press upon the Uganda police force. Not only to round up youth who are behind this crime rate in the urban areas, but also contribute to the employment of the youth. And when today where the police is acquiring land to grow food for themselves, but if you try very hard to employ these youth, other than rounding them up, that won't really solve the crime problem in the country. What solves the crime problem is solving employment and having these youth engaged in productive work. And the police force is better avenue for doing this.
All right. Okay. Livingstone, you spoke about this a little bit earlier. Would you like to deepen it, and then we'll get back to Honorable Kaggwa?
Yeah, definitely. Unemployment is a source of a lot of evil, because there you have idle minds, which needs to be made use of. I always see young people wherever I go in the urban setting playing cards, Ludo, because they have nothing to do, And many times we say, why don't they have something to do? It reminds me of that queen. They don't have capital, they don't have land. Of course, not all of them, because there are some who definitely don't want to work. But there are many also who want to work. Think about the so many graduates that our universities release each year. And they go around town looking for a job. And you find this young man, the shoe he's wearing is getting torn, and has
he has to hold it together with his toes.
Exactly, has nowhere to go. I think what Mr. Wamboga is saying, government needs to invest strategically. What is strategic investment? It's not about the big industries. Look at India, for example. The whole idea of small-scale industries.
Cottage industries.
Where people at the end of the day can get 5,000 shillings and take home. That person who has something to look to the next day will not engage in crime.
They use venture capital fund, very briefly.
Exactly.
Talk to us about that. Did it work, or is it formatted badly?
I think you look at the case of Grameen Bank. It was a real success story. How would the Indian government have managed that big population if they did not really invest in those?
We don't have a national bank here. In China, some of the biggest entities are government-owned. CCC, that's a bank. That's one of the biggest banks in the world, competing with American banks, one of the top 10 banks. I think the Chinese have about 3 of the top 10 banks in the world coming out of China, government-owned. Honorable Medi Kaggwa, talk to us a little bit about this panda gari. Some people have called it panda gari. They find it sleeping at midday. They take them to places. They're on the map in their houses.
No, of course.
Is that a human rights abuse?
Of course, everybody would be very, very glad to see the police get rid of or get hold of the people who commit crime. But I think here we are talking about the mode. You find me dead in the night sleeping, you round me up, and you don't know whether I'm sick or I'm not.
But is that actually happening, or is that sounds serious?
Well, we've seen some things on TV of recent, and
people finding their homes sleeping on the TV.
In the pubs, in what? It has been on a gatali confuf. And my quarrel here is, I think much as I wouldn't mind rounding up bad elements, I think we must, Livingstone causes a systematic way of doing things. I think we know, before we do an operation, we must have a system that we should be able to exonerate the innocent as fast as possible.
Round them up like fish and throw it.
You round me up, but you have no screening mechanism. Now, let's talk about...
But that's a normal way to work. You soup people up and then you...
Well, the worldwide at times is used when they suspect
state of emergency.
Bad people in particular slum areas. That has happened, but they have a system of screening and even the way of handling. I'm happy these days they no longer throw the people under the, those seats under the pickup.
You
remember I had a big battle over that, pushing somebody below the, but I'm happy to note that they no longer do that.
They have air-conditioned buses.
Well, I don't know. I'm happy to note that even the dead are respected. They have bought ambulances. I'm happy that I must give them credit. And what really hurts me, Edmund, I see the police do very, very good, very, very impossible work. I see it in my scene. I see them on TV. Somebody has thrown a kid in a pit latrine.
And they
police
go
officer
and for them.
A body has been found 3 days rotting. They go there. This good work is erased by a small thing that is not done properly. The issue is doing the job properly. This is the bottom line.
Those are heroic things. They should be getting medals for some of those things. Those ordinary policemen.
I look at this. Somebody has fallen in the pond. He's dead. The body is sweating. Everybody runs to the police.
And the police actually get them out.
Yes. So, I think they need to improve on that method of work. It's not the principle of work, but the method.
The delivery of justice like this. Very briefly before we go, Roslyn, the outlook, the future, what does it look like? 5 years from now, the next election year, will the rates go back up, or do you think the bad days are behind us?
It will depend on how we progress as a country in terms of addressing the systemic weaknesses in the system that Livingstone was talking about, and it depends on how far we want to deepen democracy and rule of law. It will call for a lot of sensitization. It involves work both by citizens and the state.
Thank you very much, Leader of the Honorable Medi Kaggwa, Chairman of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Thank you for coming to Spectrum tonight, sir. Mr. Livingstone Sewanyana, Executive Director of the Foundation for Human Rights Initiative. Thank you for coming over tonight. Mrs. Roslyn Karugonjo, SEGAWA, Director of Monitoring and Inspection of the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmund Kizito. Spectrum will be back tomorrow. Right now, you can hear the news in English.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
The views expressed on